true. So thank you again for the super chat, Trump and Nate. Go ahead, Borderline.
Yeah, so when I came in, I think the conversation was in one place, and I came in like right before the young man came in and kind of changed the conversation about his legal matter. But I had heard Peter ask me to come up, so I wondered if he got a specific question for me, what was on his mind, what was the conversation kind of geared to at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you came up. I appreciate it. I'd like to actually reference what we got into it about last night, which was you stating that nothing can really be done until reparations are paid out. That you know that Black Americans really can't take any moves forward or move forward until reparations are paid. And I want to see if you would give a little exegesis on that.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of my analysis of everything. I mean, we can kind of move along and survive, but we're under the dictation, and unless we get reparations and we're able to move forward for ourselves, then yeah, we're at the mercy of all these things that you're talking about, these civil liberties and these rights that we're losing. Yeah, we're gonna lose them, and we're gonna lose them as pardon my language, but hey, niggers in America. Well, that's what we are. We are the bottom caste. There's no motherfucking if, ands, or buts about it. Yes, you can, you can find success within the prison, right? Like you can get certain jobs in the prison, but when it comes down to it, uh, no matter how accomplished the judge is, if they want the judge, they can come get the judge. We watched it with Bill Cosby, just illegal prosecution, and nobody went to jail for illegally prosecuting him. And that is the position of Black people in America. And so we live through this stuff and we watch each trauma that comes for us, like i.e. Trayvon Martin, Tamar Rice. I mean, you name it. We watch these things. We see that we have no civil rights, no human rights in this country, but we just continue to kind of go along and get along because subjugation is very comfortable at this point. The
Okay, let me ask you a
oh yeah, go
question.
ahead,
Let me
Jay.
ask you a question. You mentioned Trayvon Martin. Do you happen to know what his ambition in life was?
I do not judge.
He wanted to be a police detective like his father and grandfather. Those two were on the Miami Department when he was killed. So he wanted to be part of that system. So how would he have been excluded if it wasn't for this first generation Cuban descendant who basically was doing what they did for young 20-ish first generation descendant Cubano OGs? There's a horrible problem in the Miami area between that first descendants of the first generation of Cuban immigrants and everybody else. Perhaps there was a problem reflected in that more than a racist situation.
Well, for me, I come back to the part of the government. Like I really don't care about him. I mean, I do in what he did, but the point is the after effect, right? Um, this is Florida, and Florida has a stand your ground law. And
So does every other state except six.
okay, all right, so that's good. So in the stand your ground law, I don't understand how that was not afforded to Trayvon Martin.
He was the one. Look, what happened is his civil lawyer was ignorant of the law and didn't advocate it, wanted it to keep quiet. Anderson Cooper of CNN asked his mother not to bring up certain things so they could keep it quiet because it ramped it up and amplified the racist aspects of the thing. The problem is I told that civil lawyer who was ignorant of the fact, I told him personally when Trayvon's mother personally asked me to get on a three-way with him. I said, Counselor, don't you realize that it's your client that had to stand your ground right, not Zimmerman? He said, huh? He didn't even know it.
And
So here we have a practitioner of the law that was ignorant of the fact that his own client had to stand your ground right. See, it wasn't a Jewish man, Zimmerman. It was a Hispanic. The reason he had Zimmerman as his last name is because back in the 40s and 50s, a lot of Jewish people went to Havana, Cuba to party from New York. Frankly, they knocked up a number of Cuban women, and they used the last name of the person that was responsible for their offspring. So a lot of Cubanos got Jewish last names. And that's what happened with Zimmerman. He wasn't white, he was Cuban.
but the nail in the coffin is, even though once we get past the original transgression of the dumb lawyer, right? Am I correct? And maybe I'm wrong, but I did think that we had a federal investigation that went along with the original thing. And that's the
But
point,
you
because
see,
that, now how do we get past the federal investigation, not seeing
well,
that and
see,
understanding the
hold on a
transgression?
second. Hold on. The feds don't have jurisdiction over a typical homicide case unless it deals with some kind of violation of a person's civil rights. And you are going to have a hard time when you have just a simple street homicide to being turned into a matter of federal violation of somebody's civil rights. That's one of the things a lot of people don't understand. Why don't the feds do it? They don't have jurisdiction.
Well, what were they there for? What were they exercising jurisdiction on? What did they
You mean
review?
the feds?
Yes.
That was a state case. That was a local elected district attorney in the state of Florida who had a hugely Hispanic district. What happened was Trayvon's father, who was a cop, a detective, was visiting a girlfriend who was also a lady cop. And he took a walk basically so dad could have some free time with his girlfriend and ran into Zimmerman. And Anderson Cooper wanted to rank the whole thing up for ratings, so they emphasized that it was some rogue looking young black kid with a hoodie on. And is Zimmerman acting like a responsible member of the community confronting somebody that looks like a crook? Well, the person that looked like a crook had a long standing ambition to be a police detective like his dad and granddad. So Anderson Cooper lied to the public for CNN ratings. So a lot of what happened was not the reality. It was the manufactured drama that came out of Hollywood.
Okay. I understand that, but I don't. I'm taking the racial aspect out of it. I'm talking
Okay,
about.
take it out of it.
I'm talking about a straight murder. That was a murder.
Yeah, but it's not a federal case. Murder is not federal unless it occurs under certain limited circumstances, like a bank robbery. The feds have jurisdiction over bank robberies because the feds insure the bank's deposits. So the
Okay.
FBI investigates bank robberies, and that
Actually,
involves a murder. And if a murder comes out of that, yeah. But ordinarily, just a straight up killing, they don't have
okay.
jurisdiction.
So Peter, this conversation right here just shows you that I am absolutely right. So what the judge just told me is that in America, niggers ain't shit, and you can get fucking killed.
Stop saying the F word.
Okay, my bad. You can get
Well,
killed.
stop saying the N word.
Judge, is that what you said? I
That's
didn't hear
not
that
what
at
I
all.
said. I
That,
just
but that, but okay.
Yeah.
Trayvon Martin was walking by himself. He was the guy who killed him was on the phone with the police, who told him not to go do anything, and he went against the wishes of the 911 people. and he ended up murdering somebody that he was
Well, you
chasing
know,
through backyards and around.
he didn't
And he
chase
stood
he
trial
didn't he,
for it
he
by a
didn't
jury of his peers.
he didn't chase anybody through any backyards. That's hype.
He didn't
It wasn't
he
that
did
way.
not die
And
in the
what went
backyard.
on, what
And he was
happened,
charged and he faced a jury of his peers, and they decided that his actions were
Yes,
reasonable
and
and
even though
proportionate.
they
yeah, it's
decided that,
called,
it's wrong. But
it,
it doesn't matter that they
no,
decided
listen to
that.
me, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. It's a thing that is the downside, but it is the salvation of American law. It's called jury nullification. Now, this is funny, and I'll say it candidly so you'll get the idea. 45 years ago, I had a number of cases where I defended people. They were charged with a felony that carried 3 to 15 years in the state penitentiary. You know what the felony was? If a man and a woman went down on each other and she gave him a head job and he ate her pussy, that was 3 to 15 years in the state penitentiary. It used to tickle everybody that was a professional, the reaction of the jury. Jesus Christ, Lawyer Brown, are you telling me that for eating my wife's pussy, I can get 3 to 15 years in the state
I'm
penitentiary? Yes,
about to
sir.
get
That's
life.
exactly what I'm saying. Your Honor, Lawyer Brown is telling you the truth, sir. That's known as unnatural sex acts under the laws of Tennessee. It's not anymore, but the jury nullified that. Oh, every time we'd go to trial, I ain't voting for guilty on something like that. Man, I ain't voting for guilty. I ain't going to admit it, man, but damn. See, that's jury nullification.
All right.
Sometimes juries do that, and that's what happened with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman.
I need to go to another speaker. Lovely is next.
Hey
How
Dana.
are
Hey
you?
Peter. I'm good, baby.
Hey.
Peace, Judge. My question for you is, I don't know if you touched on it already, but I'm in New York City, right? And I see what's going on in DC. And I was reading up on how the other cities that Donald Trump allegedly wants to take this to. And when it comes to New York, he's saying that the reason he wants to do it is because of the bail reform that happened in 2020, which as a New Yorker, I could say once that bail reform once it hit, there's definitely been a rise in crime. So I guess my first question is it possible? Because some people are saying that he can't do it, and some people are saying he can do it in New York. And then what would I guess be like? I guess it's like a fine line between being a New Yorker, knowing that crime has risen, but also not wanting to become a police state. So those are my questions for you.
Okay, it works this way. Fundamental law and order comes from the citizens and their interactions with each other and the culture that they set up that develops the socialization and the acculturation that spreads throughout a community. If they can't control it, then you have the police, and policing really means cleaning up. Police are new. Police were invented in the late 1830s in England by a guy named Robert Peel, who set up Scotland Yard, and that spread to New York and Boston in the early 1840s. Then the constitutional officer who's in charge of handling the matters that get out of hand is the sheriff. If the sheriff and his deputies can't deal with it, then you bring in various functionalities of the state, such as the highway patrol, state police, or special state agencies. If the state can't ensure public peace, dignity, and order, then it is the obligation of the feds to do that. In other words, if the state can't handle it, it's not going to be allowed to fester. The feds are supposed to step in and restore public order, because what you have is essentially a riot. What you have is essentially an insurrection, big time. What you have is lawlessness that cannot be permitted to spread, and it starts impacting interstate commerce and communications. That brings the feds in to say, okay, people passing through here on the public highways can't do it in peace because they might get jacked up going through this part of the city or the town by criminal elements. So you get the feds in. So they can do stuff like that to enforce law and order. That's okay. Arkansas, 1956. The U.S. Supreme Court had ordered that schools be integrated with all deliberate speed. A Democrat governor of Arkansas, Orville Faubus, said he didn't care what the U.S. Supreme Court said. Weren't no Negroes going to come through Little Rock High School as long as he was the governor. So Eisenhower, a Republican president, said, all right, tell you what, we'll send in the 101st Airborne and nationalize the National Guard. So now you got 15, 16,000 armed troops. We'll take care of enforcing the law. The same thing Newsom did. He's the governor of the state of California. He's a Democrat. He said, we're not going to follow the federal law. So a Republican president said, we'll send in the National Guard or nationalize the National Guard and send in the reserves. Same thing. But it was 70 years later. See, it's gone on over and over again throughout the country's history. There are levels, and that's how it works.
Thank you. And I guess my last part would be, why not just change the bail reform? Because I know they're tweaking it, which for those who don't know, in New York City in 2020, there's a bail reform with at least 400 crimes on there that you can now get away with, and it's a cashless bail thing. And they're heinous
Bail
crimes.
used to work until some liberal fools got a hold of the whole doggone thing and got to saying, no, we can't have that. I've seen people living in the worst parts of town with the lowest per capita incomes get bail, set a surety bond for somebody where they put up 10%. And if somebody didn't appear, they sent out a bounty hunter. And there's an 1877 U.S. Supreme Court case that allowed bounty hunters to be very effective. And it worked. I think 98, 99, close to 100% of the defendants actually damn near all the time wound up getting prosecuted eventually, and most of them pretty quickly. This stuff they have now does not work. It's crazy.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Peter.
Appreciate you, lovely. And let me
Thank
just
you.
let people know, because if you spoke and you notice I dropped you down to listener, because I'm making room for people who are requesting to come up. So I just don't want people to get offended. The Great Debate, Ellis, Caesar, Immortal, Gibson, Live JD, Two Rottes or Two Rot. So go ahead, The Great Debate. Is he still up here?
Yes, I am. Hello, everybody. Hello,
Hi.
Judge Joe Brown. Peter. Um,
Good to see
I
you.
have a quick question.
Okay.
I have a quick question for you, Judge Joe Brown. I was raised with a black man in your similar profession in the criminal justice field, and I was wondering, as a younger black man in his 30s, what would you tell the youth today to how to move forward as a group to get the results that we haven't seen in 70 years? And after that question, I have one more.
Actually, it wasn't bad in the late 60s. We were headed somewhere until we got caught up in this glorification of dysfunction, and then it went downhill very quickly. And a lot of the problems we have right now is because our acculturation and socialization deems us, it has us looking at what faces us as hopeless. It's not. But you have to do your part by being sufficiently educated in what's going on, how it works, and what its purposes are. You see, being a citizen is a lot like operating or driving a motor vehicle. To get the motor vehicle driver's license so you're legal, you have to study the handbook and learn the rules and be able to physically operate the motor vehicle. There's a thing called the Constitution of the United States, and that is basically the handbook to operate yourself in today's society. Nobody reads it, but everybody reads the handbook for driver's licenses, at least scans through it to pass the driving, not the driving, but the written test. And it's 10, 15 times as long as the Constitution. The Constitution in a pamphlet is maybe 10, 12 pages max. It'd take a high school graduate maybe 15, 20 minutes to read the whole thing. But we don't. And we just base a lot of what we do on absolute ignorance because we have never taken the time to read it. And as a matter of fact, I can't even get on lay people. It seems that over the last 40 to 50 years, every survey, every bar association has taken, only about 25% of the practicing lawyers and the sitting judges have actually read the Constitution. They may have studied aspects of it in school, but they haven't read the whole thing. So, I mean, it's just absolute laziness. But study that Constitution and you'll get some clues as to how it works. And then read up on philosophy and get the idea that humans are what we are. And we're not perfect, so we can't have a perfect system because there's no perfect engine to manipulate or run a perfect system. So we do the best we can. And what we have in comparison to what they have in other places is not bad. A lot of people like to go to France, right? Go to Paris, fun, go down to the Riviera. But there's an interesting thing about French law. If they arrest you in France, you are presumed guilty until you prove yourself innocent. How about that? That's not so bad when you compare what they do in the United States. In Mexico, a lot of that depends on who you know, how much money you got, what your connections are, and if you live long enough to get to trial. So, I mean, it's interesting. In China, people that would make $2 or $3 million on a book deal writing about what they did, they get put on a wall and shot. It's different. I
And
pass the mic.
and Judge, one more question. Over the later years, I've been seeing a lot of a lot of my black peers extremely lazy, undisciplined, and unfocused. Would you say that um, white supremacy is the problem, or is it the passive aggressiveness of the of us chasing what we should have in this country?
White supremacy is a propaganda tool to get you to take yourself out of the equation. As,
Thank you for that.
as Muhammad Ali said when he was talking about propaganda, my late brother, Cliff Stewart of Los Angeles, California, was his bodyguard, introduced him to one of his wives for a number of years. I spoke with Ali, and Ali said, "You know what? I psych my opponents out. I get them more worried about what I'm going to do to them than they get to think about what they can do to me." So when you get off into white supremacy, you get caught up in this mythology of what they're going to do to you rather than what you can do to make things right for yourself. It's a sight game. I studied propaganda for a whole year at UCLA a long time ago. I had a person that actually was in charge. It was a Soviet professor. She was visiting. She was a good communist, but she was here as a guest of the U.S. government, and she actually had been in charge of propaganda for the KGB. That's the folk that James Bond was always going up against, the counterpart of the CIA. And as she said, one of the main engines or mechanisms, not engines, main mechanisms of propaganda was to get your target to think as though he were helpless in the face of what you might do to him, even though that's not the truth. All he had to do was get the right mindset, and he'd be a dangerous opponent himself. So white supremacy is a trick bag that is developed over the last 50 years as a propaganda ploy used by mainstream media and the entertainment industry to get black folk feeling like they are so oppressed that there's no hope unless the oppressors cure the problem that they're causing. Politics never works that way. You have to compel the ending of a problem, not depend on somebody doing you a favor in doing it. Politics is not about what you get given through politics. It's about setting up a platform that allows you to get what you wish to get through your own efforts. That's something most people don't know.
Okay.
God
And
damn.
Judge, what about useful idiots? What role do useful idiots play in
Peter
this?
Halligan a lot of time.
Useful idiots make everybody waste a whole lot of time dealing with them. It's like politics isn't composed of fundamentally dishonest people. There are some very dishonest, crooked people involved in politics, and they so corrupt everything that everybody's got to deal with them on a certain nasty level in order to put them in check.
Okay. I need to go to Ellis. Is Ellis still up here?
Thank you for the answers, Judge Joe Brown. That was perfect. I appreciate you for all your hard work. My father's 4 years younger than you. He's a lieutenant, so I'm a conservative. I grew up off a lot of the things that you said is 1,000% correct, and I appreciate you for everything that you said.
Thank you.
All right. I don't see Ellis. Caesar.
Appreciate it. Sorry, I came here probably like an hour and a half ago or so. So I just wrote down a few things that I wanted to touch on. Earlier, I heard someone say, "But we have the power to vote." But do you actually? If you want to think the voting system's all legitimate, you don't get to pick who you're voting for. Two fucking candidates are just thrown to the top.
No,
Don't
that
say
is,
the F.
don't do that.
Okay,
Data
apologize
puts
for
this
that.
on YouTube, and if you're not into the mainstream rainbow cult thing, they jack you up for using that. So chill on that.
Okay, sure. Yeah,
Go
sorry
ahead.
about the F bomb. Also, I heard we need to vote out bad people, but to me, I'd say good luck with knowing who the bad people are. I think the truth is a very hard thing to find these days, especially a lot of the issues that you guys would argue about. It seems like you'll never get to the bottom of the truth. And like you were saying, it's just kind of what the useful idiots do to distract people. But you guys spent a lot of time yourself on that. My question about the government to people who think they know how it works is why are there two parties though? Shouldn't they both be working to make civilization better? Why does it have to create a divide between people? That
Okay,
like
I'll
one
explain
person's in
that
control now
easier.
and they get to do what they want for 4 years. Do you think that's
Okay,
fair?
Well, Caesar, let him answer the question.
that's by intent.
Well, it wasn't a
This
question,
is
especially not for the judge. Sorry.
I'm gonna here. Let me explain that. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. The United States is not a democracy. It never was intended to be a democracy because the people that set it up viewed a democracy as an evil. The elected officials are selected in a democratic fashion, but they're not expected to govern in a democratic fashion. California had a proposition about 20 some years ago that was in Los Angeles, and they wanted the citizens to vote on all city contracts. And I can just see the citizenry voting knowingly on a 29-page formal contract between an energy supplier and the city of Los Angeles in supplying power to some street traffic signals out in the San Fernando Valley. That would be absolutely ridiculous because the people didn't have the competence. The system is set up as a republic wherein the democratically selected officials run the place, and they are put up for either returned office or being turned out of office every 2, 4, or 6 years, depending, or 8 years, depending upon their term. Now, that's the way we work. This is not a democracy.
Great. I never really said it was. But that's fine. I don't need a history lesson or your thoughts on how politics work. Just to be clear
No,
for the future.
well, but you have to deal with how it works.
But you're
Politics
assuming you
comes
know
into
more so than
play.
me on that subject, and you might not.
No,
So
no, no,
just
no, listen,
let a
listen, but
speaker
I do.
speak. If you care about freedom of
I
speech from
do.
the
I
Constitution,
do.
let me have my moment,
I
right?
do.
Or do you just
But
want
I'm
to be
just
one of those useful
answering a
idiots talking
question.
about a bunch of history that you think's legit?
Yeah, but I happen to have made some of it, and I've ruled on it. So you haven't done that,
I'd love
and
to see
I've been
proof of that,
upheld.
but it really doesn't matter
Now,
in this
let me
stance. It's
explain.
about the message, not the messenger.
Stop, son. You sound ignorant because you don't know what you're
So
talking
I think
about.
you're a
You have an
preacher more so than a
opinion.
judge. Why do we need labels though? If I
Both of
think
them.
abortion's bad, why does that automatically put me in a label
Well,
of
I'm
I
going to
agree with
give
all
you
this other
some
stuff from this
knowledge. I
party?
didn't say.
Where's the middle
I
ground where I
didn't
can pick and
say.
choose and be in the
Hold
gray?
on. I didn't listen. What was the term you just used?
I use several terms.
No, the one about the idiots.
Oh, I was basically saying you're doing a job of a useful idiot right now, just taking us all over the
But
place
you are
instead
being
of
the
giving freedom
useful
of speech.
idiot. You're being the useful idiot because hard-headedly you're not learning from the expert. You
But
were
you're not an
trying to
expert. I've
interject.
already said I
I
don't care
am an
about your history
expert.
lessons or your
I
supposed
am an
stance in
expert.
society. You have no
I
idea who
am
I
an
am.
expert.
So don't
I
assume about
don't
me.
know who you are. Don't care. You're not as old as me. You haven't met the people I've met, including U.S.
I don't
presidents,
want to, and
vice
if I did, it would be
presidents,
worse for them than it would be
chiefs
for
of
me.
state. Excuse me. I also have a doctorate degree. Do you have one?
Do you have proof of
Now,
that? Could I
next
see it?
thing,
Could I see what you had a doctorate in and then quiz you on it? Because I probably know that subject better than yourself. So let's
oh,
get to the
you're
bottom of it
acting a
right
fool.
now.
You're acting a
But you
fool.
won't tell
Now,
me
you
what it's
want to,
in. You won't prove it. And you won't let me
you
quiz
want
you
to
because
keep talking.
you're a useful idiot.
You're showing and useful idiots characteristics right now. If you want to see politics, I would suggest you go to the local zoo. If you have a good one, go to the primate house and watch the chimps and the baboons, and you will see primitive politics, and you will be able to see what humans do on a more advanced level very clearly because it's the same. Anytime you have three or more people, you have politics. If you've got one on one, it's just being nice, or somebody can beat somebody's ass and impose it. If you've got three people, if you want something done, two of them are going to have to persuade the other one to join them, or one person's going to have to persuade one more person to join him, so it'll be two against one. That's what politics is about. Every single thing humans do on this planet involves politics. There's no getting away from it. Now,
Great.
it
That's a great opinion. So
except I have
to address some other
let
speaker,
me put it this way. My opinion is different from yours. Even in a court of law, expert witnesses are entitled to give an opinion. Nobody else is allowed to. Experts, by dint of their education, their experience, their involvement in the subject matter,
what you just
are
said is false,
deemed,
though.
yeah,
More people are
well,
allowed to give opinions than the expert witnesses, right?
no, not they
The
aren't.
lawyer may
They
give an
aren't.
opinion on why he
No,
thinks
they
someone's
aren't.
guilty or not.
They
The
aren't.
defendant might talk about his opinion on certain matters. It's
Excuse
not just
me.
all black and white.
No,
I've been in
that's not what
courtrooms.
the law is. That's not what the law is. You cannot deliver an opinion in any American court on the ultimate issue in controversy. Now, let's get you. Do you know what that means? Well, that's the law that will impact you, any state in the union, if you get jacked up in front of a jury. Now, let's get back to this whole thing. An expert, by dint of his education, experience, etc., is allowed to state an opinion that can be considered by a 12-person jury as evidence. You can't. I can. That's the difference between us. Because what I'm speaking on now,
Actually, I
I'd be
can, but
allowed
thanks.
to testify as to some things, state an opinion as an expert. You can't.
Dana with the data. Dana with the data.